as you guys always remind me, it's a very narrow window for planting. So you've got to kind of be in position to take advantage of those resources so that you can, I'm not telling you anything you don't know, but to be able to deploy them at the exact right time. Otherwise, if we miss that window, we're waiting another year again. So if you could just comment on that.
Yeah. I believe it's the gateway city, not necessarily the greening of the gateway cities, but it could be a combination. I'm not 100% sure, so we're both going to look back at our notes and find out if it's the same or not. But if it is the gateway cities and the greening, I do know with the greening gateway cities that they are working in different communities, and they haven't been in Peabody. They've been close. They've been to Salem, they've been to Lynn, but they just haven't gotten to Peabody yet. So it was just brought up in the conversation today, so I'm going to start looking at it again and revisiting the Greening Gateway Cities app as well as the Gateway Cities and see which one it might be, if it's not both.
Thank you. I'm very glad to hear that. I did contact the state at one point about this, and they did confirm that Peabody was on their short list. So we need to close that loop and make that request so that we can advance that. And I don't want to speak for Councilor Melville, but I stand ready to help any way I can, and I assume he probably would as well. I'll let him speak for himself, but we're obviously anything we can do to assist to make sure we can kind of fast track that request, and anything that we can do to help work with Rep. Walsh, we would certainly stand ready to do that as well. So,
great.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Councilman McGinn. Councilor O'Neill.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Not to beat a dead horse, but you folks are in here in front of us tonight, and I want to thank you for your work. I've been in the office for 6 years, and your departments and your teams have just been very responsive. And I know a couple weeks ago, a resident reached out to me with a tree that had fallen down from the storm, blocking one of the parks, and was able to send a text to Brian, and they got it cleared the next day. And that's wonderful for that situation, but that means that other things, are pushed back. And I know that even if we do nothing with emergency situations, we all have the stuff that's already growing and has to be pruned. So it never ends for you folks, and which is a sad thing. But I know that the work that gets done, it really is impressive, and it just doesn't stop. Especially, it was a great idea, decades ago to put trees all through the city, but were they the right types? And now we're dealing with that with sidewalks coming up, and maybe not the right types with wires, as you pointed out. So I did want to make sure I said thank you. In terms of call it the backlog, where Councilor Gamache and Councilor Turco had talked about that, the backlog of removals. Even if we were able to get put forth some funds, say it's 100,000, I know that's an average, or if that's the figure, to get at those 120 something trees, would it be conceivable to be able to get the contractors to come in and backfill in the next few months? Is that just something that could be done? Is that something that should be better? I mean, trying to even organize that and getting bids for this is probably a very difficult task. I just don't know. Is that something that's doable for the fall?
To try to get them to come in.
Yeah, even like a team of contractors to say maybe half of them or whatever. Can they do them before winter? Is that even conceivable?
They would be able to get it done. Yeah.
Okay, so
I would look at the list here, and I would isolate areas and put those out.
Okay, so
they're not just, like I said before, not just jumping around.
Understood. So that's just getting it in terms of the task at hand. Is that possible? And where I think there would be full support from the council and the mayor to get that, to once again for the safety of the residents and property or whatnot. I just wanted to make sure if that was something, if we all talked about it, is that something that could be done, and we could get the actual third-party contractors to come in and do that work.
Yep. Some would be bucket work, and probably a few of them would be crane work, which is the larger trees. So.
Okay, thank you. I sit in full support of any additional costs that we have to put forth to help get the backlog just through the equipment malfunctions or whatnot. So thank you again.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor O'Neill. Councilor Melville.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just on the tree replacement, the Greening the Gateway Cities tree planting program, it's on the state website. It's something we have to request. So it would be something you would contact EEA with. And then they would coordinate. It is a very comprehensive program, so they do a lot of the work. They do have to work with the residents to make sure that the residents will maintain whatever is planted, but I think it will free you up from a lot of the tasks of some of the planting and might be able to help you with all the rest of the tasks you have at hand. You've been very responsive to me, so I really appreciate that. But just that's the program. Councilor McGinn and I had brought it up a couple of years ago, so I really would suggest that we be very, very aggressive there. Thank you.
Thank you. There is, some of the streets for those streets would be like Paleologus, Harris, Fulton. That area has been decimated. They all had Bradford pears and they're all collapsing, overgrown, just kind of a nasty tree. But we also have a lot of sidewalk issues. So, I mean, in a perfect world, you get the sidewalk done first and then you put the tree in and you're good. So if we're putting trees in the tree pit and, you know, you got a 3-inch slip on the concrete sidewalk, then we got the tree, but then I don't know if that's a good look. So, and I know we all get calls for sidewalks and trees, and there's no winner on that one. So, but as far as planting, I always try to make sure it's a viable site when we do it, so.
Councilor Rosendahl.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll be brief. First, thank you very much. I want to echo what other councilors have said as far as your responsiveness. And anytime I've had an issue, Brian, you and your team have been outstanding. The one question I have, what is your determining factor to do it in-house versus to sub it out at this point? You know, what do you use for a measuring stick to keep it in-house versus turfing it to a subcontractor?
I just think the mass amount of work that we have. I mean, we have 3 great guys that work extremely hard. Some days 2, you know, so, but there's no way we could ever get this backlog gone without help. Is that what you're asking me? Okay.
No. So looking at a site, what would determine whether you keep it in-house or whether you send it to a subcontractor? I understand right now the volume is
okay.
massive,
Yep.
and in order to get back to what we need, you need to subcontract it. I completely understand that, and I'm 100% in favor of that, and because I do think that we need to get back ahead of a better schedule. My question is just what do you use for a determining factor whether you keep something in-house versus sending it to a subcontractor?
In years past, most everything has been in-house because we're just trying to save money for a big storm in case we needed a contractor to come in. We can handle pretty much anything. Our bucket's reach is about 75 feet, and that's, you know, pretty much straight up. Anything over that would be crane work, or if the tree's large enough, or we don't have access. There's a lot of trees in backyards that we can't access, and that's a big issue. There's no way we can get our bucket truck back there or whatnot. So a lot of the conservations or random city properties, we have to have a contractor come in and take care of it, and that's $2,000 or $3,000 right there. So most in the years past, everything we tried to get it taken care of ourselves, but so.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Just for time constraints, I'm going to wrap it up with Councilor Gould.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Our own personal tree warden here, everybody, the accolades are tremendous for you, Brian, so thank you very much for what you do. Jen, real quick, I may have dreamt this, but weren't we part of a tree city? Weren't we recognized as a tree city?
Oh, we still are.
Does that give
We're
us benefits? Are there any benefits to that?
25 years as Tree City.
Any benefits?
Are there grants?
No grants.
It's just more recognition.
Yeah.
And, yeah, it's more a recognition thing. They don't
Okay.
really have a lot of grants, but
Okay.
there's always the possibility. It looks good on our resume.
Okay. Brian,
We're
I
applying.
participated in this myself 7 or 8 years ago. You planted a tree. We upgraded by paying for it. Are most people aware of that program, or can we make the public aware of that?
We certainly can, yep.
I think it behoove us. I mean, if somebody wants to pay for a new tree, you know, why not?
Yeah, so if they wanted to do that, they would They would give us a check, we'd put it in the city tree fund, and would, again, pick out a
Right,
tree,
right.
and we'd pick it up and plant it for them.
Right,
And I've recently got 2 or 3 calls,
okay.
the residents looking to volunteer to help with that.
Can you publicize that more, if you would, please?
Sure.
Get it on
Yep.
the city website? Okay,
Sure
thank
thing,
you.
yep, thank you.
Mr. Chairman, if I may defer to Councilor Gamache. I'm not a member of the committee, so he's going to make a motion with your input, please.
Yeah, very briefly, I just wanted to say, thank you to both. I also call quite a bit to both of you for whether it be parks or trees, and you're both very responsive. So this was always an issue about trying to assist both of you, because we're all well aware of how many calls that we get. I mentioned on the way into Brian Grant that today alone, I got 5 phone calls, 4 removals and 1 pruning request. So I can't imagine that 3 guys can keep up with this. That being said, in reference to Council Gamache's initial thought of a request, 121 trees at roughly $750 per tree is $90,000, $90,750. So you're in the ballpark of removing all 121 trees and still leaving some residual for plantings to help Councilor Gould as well as the Gateway Cities Initiative. So I think we kind of handle both issues up front here with that motion, so I would support that. With that, Councilor Gamache.
Yes, at this time, I would move to send a communication to His Honor the Mayor requesting that he find an appropriation of $100,000 to the tree department, specifically for reference to public safety concerning trees that must be removed, and see if we can get that done expeditiously. So moved.
Any questions on the motions? All in favor, any opposed? It's a vote. With no further questions,
Motion to adjourn?
Meeting adjourned.